partial obedience and half effort is really keeping you from God's best. True obedience doesn't need to understand when or how things are going to happen. You simply just have the faith that it will. Having faith requires movement. You can't stay in the boat. You will not be able to become the person that God has called you to be if you continue to stay in a state of almost. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Girls in Real Life podcast. I'm your host, Mariah Hutchinson. Happy Monday. Happy Thanksgiving week. Yo, I don't even know how is Thanksgiving already because this is crazy. I told you guys in last week's episode that Justin and I are hosting our family for Thanksgiving. We did this last year as well, but last year I felt way more prepared than I do this year. Like this year, nothing is ready. I remember at the beginning of the month, I was telling Justin like all the stuff that I wanted to get done around the house before Thanksgiving came. And now Thanksgiving is literally in like 4 days and nothing I said at the beginning of the month has gotten done. I don't know what we're going to do. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter as long as we have food and my family's here and they have a good time. Nothing else really matters. We're back in the studio today, obviously. My goal is to really get this space together. It has been like this since last Christmas when Justin surprised me with this whole space, and I've still done nothing with it. It is exactly the same. It's messy up in here. It's dirty. Y'all been staring at the same LED sign that I can't even get to work. Like, I just need to update this room so much. I'm trying to decide if I want to keep the pink wall or if I want to do something different. I just really want to make it super cozy and comfy in here for me, for y'all, just for everyone. Hopefully within the new year, I'll be able to kind of get this space together. And while I'm on the topic of the new year, I do want to let you guys know I am taking the last 2 weeks of December off. So the week of Christmas and then the week of New Year's, y'all will not have a new episode from me just because your girl needs a break. I want to try and get everything together so that by the time we come back in the new year, we're refreshed. We'll have a new podcast cover art. Hopefully we'll have a new studio situation. So yeah, I'm still trying to figure all that out, but just wanted to make you guys aware that the last 2 weeks of December, you will not be hearing from me. But obviously, if you want to keep up with me, you can follow me on my personal socials because I'm always active over there. But anyways, let's just go ahead and dive into today's episode. Today we are talking about the cost of almost. Ooh, what does that mean? No one knows what it means, but it's provocative. No, I'm kidding. I feel like we all have moments where we almost did something. We almost stayed consistent. We almost forgave that person. We almost took that leap of faith. But what has your almost cost you? Because I feel like we don't think about this as much as we should, about how our reservations to be fully obedient to the things that God has asked us to do is actually keeping us from experiencing the fullness of life. I think a lot of us love to tell ourselves, well, at least I tried. I did my best. I gave it all I got, but we really didn't fully commit to the thing, whether it was because we were afraid, we were outside of our comfort zone. So you only tried or committed halfway so that you could say you did it, but you didn't actually go 100% into it. But what if trying halfway is actually what is keeping you stuck? What if trying halfway is actually the reason that you're not leveling up or progressing at any point in your life? Partial effort can feel productive, but it's really just disguised as procrastination. It is a way for you to kind of dip your pinky toe into the waters a little bit just so that you could say you swam when you really didn't even get in the water. You know what I'm saying? So today I really just want to talk about how partial obedience and half effort is really keeping you from God's best and keeping you stuck in cycles where you feel like you're not growing. So what does almost look like, right? Because I think that it looks different for everyone. So I want to give a few examples of what this could potentially look like in your life. So the first is hearing God but delaying obedience. You've heard very clearly what God has asked you to do. You have the instructions, you have the game plan, like you are ready to go. And yet for some reason you are continuing to delay things. You're putting things off. You're not actively trying to do what it is that God has asked you to do for whatever reason. The second is starting something but never finishing. finishing. And I think this is a lot of us out there. We get so many ideas. I don't know about y'all. I'm gonna talk about me. I be getting so many ideas like, oh, this sound good, this sound good, this sound good. And I'll start something, but then I never actually end up finishing it. It could be because it might be too expensive. Maybe you lost interest in it. Maybe it seems impossible to do. Maybe people around you are doubtful, so it's making you doubt yourself. That is another form of what almost can look like. Almost can also look like saying we trust God, but still holding on to control. You only trust God as long as you get to be in the driver's seat and not the other way around. And because you're holding on to control, you're not allowing yourself to be used by God, to be led by God. You are just simply relying on your own understanding, your own strength, and your own talents. All of these things I mentioned are different ways that almost can look like. And I think that we do these things because they make us feel safe, right? If I delay obedience to what God has called me to do, then I won't have to go through people looking at me weirdly or failing or putting myself out there. If I start something but never finish, then I never have to actually fail. I can just say, I didn't want to do this anymore. If I hold on to control and disguise it as trusting God, then I really have the say so of what I get to do in my life, right? All of those things make us feel safe and secure in some way, but it's a facade because it's actually keeping us more stagnant. It's actually forcing us to stay in the exact same place and never get the chance to grow into the person that God is calling us to be. And don't get me wrong, just because we do these things, whether consciously or subconsciously, doesn't mean that we're not putting in effort, doesn't mean that we're not trying. But I think we tend to experience this illusion of effort. We believe that as long as we try, as long as we put forth effort or energy towards something, then we've accomplished it, right? Maybe you didn't reach the goal, but at least you did something. And so almost can kind of in a way become a coping mechanism, because as long as we can say, oh, I almost was able to do that, or I tried so hard, I put so much effort into this. As long as we can say that, it kind of soothes our guilt a little bit without actually requiring real change. The more that I'm talking about this, the more that I'm realizing that there are two different types of almost. The first type is the person who was on the verge of doing something, the person who almost went into business, the person who almost moved to that new city, the person who almost left that toxic relationship. And then you have the other type of almost, which is the person who did put in effort, the person who did try their hardest, and yet they just didn't seem to get there. And obviously those are two very different types of people, because one person did nothing and one person actually did put forth the effort. But I think at the root of it, they're also very similar, because a lot of people who almost reached something, who almost made it, who were almost successful, do revert back to doing nothing because they realized that their effort was in vain. They didn't actually get what they worked so hard for. So why would they ever work that hard again? And so they're two sides of the same spectrum, but at the end of it all, they kind of end up on the same plane because they both had intention. And a lot of times intention is not the same thing as obedience. Let's take the person who almost did something, for example. This person might be someone who has the intention of working towards something, but is delaying that progress for some reason. So they keep saying, oh, I'm still working on it, or I'm waiting for the right time, or I'm still doing X, Y, and Z, when really they've just avoided being obedient to God altogether. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have the person who almost made it, who was almost successful. They might have had the right intention to be obedient to what God asked them to do, but maybe they didn't do it quite exactly in the way God intended for them to do. Maybe they were not fully obedient during that process of trying to get to where they were trying to go. And that is why they almost made it, because God knew that if they accomplished the thing that they wanted to accomplish in the way that they were doing it, it would not be fruitful or beneficial for them. So I say all of that to say, We are all somewhere on this spectrum, or we all have been somewhere on this spectrum at one point or another. And I really just want you to ask yourself, have you been calling something progress that's really just hesitation? Have you been the person that is saying, I'm still working on it, I'm still got things that I need to get together? Have you been the person who tried to do what God told them to do, but didn't do it in the way that they were supposed to? I think it's a very important question to ask yourself, because it truly empowers you to look at how you're walking out the things that God has asked you to do. You're either the person who's doing nothing, you're the person who's doing it wrong, or you're the person who's being 100% fully obedient and doing it right and being blessed because of it. We have to be emotionally honest with ourselves, because at the end of the day, there is one core reason why a lot of us experience this cost of almost. And it is simply because we are scared of the unknown. That is truly what it all boils down to at the end of the day. Whether you have fear that it's not going to work out, whether you doubt it can work out, whether you decide to stay in your comfort zone, or whether you try and have full control over the situation, all of it boils down to being afraid of the unknown. I struggled a lot with the unknown at so many different points in my life, and it was one of the things that really held me back the most, was because I didn't know how things would turn out if I were to do something. And so that fear caused me to delay obedience. It caused me to give up on the things that I initially started, and it caused me to try to keep some semblance of control over my life. But the older I've gotten, the more comfortable that I've become with the unknown. And I really think it's because I've allowed myself to be exposed to the unknown in my life so much. Like, exposure therapy is a real thing, and you have to be able to just jump in head first the things that scare you, because it is the only way that you will ever be able to get over it. And so if you have this fear of the unknown, you need to throw yourself out into the unknown constantly, so that it becomes a place where you are comfortable. It becomes a place where you can find peace. Because if you continue to have these reservations and hesitations and procrastinate and continue trying to control every single aspect of your life, you are going to cost yourself so many things, so many blessings that God has for you and is waiting to give to you, if you would just decide to fully believe in Him and obey what He's telling you to do. I know it's scary, okay? I have jumped headfirst into so many things and had no idea of the outcome, but every single time it worked out. And so that is what gives me the faith and the courage to keep going and keep building things and keep growing things in my life, because I know even in the midst of the unknown, everything is going to work together for the good of those who love the Lord. As long as I keep God first, as long as I know that I'm walking in purpose and doing the things that He has called me to do, I have nothing to be afraid of. If you fully believe in God and trust God in what He's telling you, you should have nothing to be afraid of. Of course, being human, there is an element of fear. There is an element of, God, I don't know how this is going to work out. I hope that it does. I really don't know. I believe that it will, but I won't know that it will until the day comes. And that's, again, a scary place to be. But you will not get anywhere in life if you do not fully commit. You have no idea what you could be missing out on simply because you insist on staying in a state of almost. I want to grab my Bible now because, of course, I have to give us a biblical example, but we're going to be in First Samuel. All of this that I'm about to tell you can be found in First Samuel chapter 15, like all of chapter 15, honestly. So Samuel has just told Saul that he needs to go attack the Amalekites because of all of the horrible things that the Amalekites did to the Israelites, and Saul was supposed to go basically avenge them. And the one thing he was supposed to make sure of was to put everything and everyone to death. I'm talking about from the people to the animals. All of them needed to go. In verse 3, it literally says, "Do not spare them. Put to death men and women, children and infants, cattle and sheep, camels and donkeys." So he was supposed to kill everything and everyone. But of course, Saul doesn't listen and he is disobedient to the orders that were given to him. And this is where I'm going to read from. It might be a little bit lengthy, but I promise you it's worth it. So we are in chapter 15, verse 7 in 1 Samuel. And it says, Then Saul attacked the Amalekites all the way from Havilah to Shur near the eastern border of Egypt. He took Agag, king of the Amalekites, alive, and all his people he totally destroyed with the sword. But Saul and the army spared Agag and the best of the sheep and cattle, the fat calves and lambs, everything that was good. These they were unwilling to destroy completely, but everything that was despised and weak they totally destroyed. Then the word of the Lord came to Samuel. I regret that I have made Saul king because he has turned away from me and has not carried out my instructions. Samuel was angry and he cried out to the Lord all that night. Early in the morning, Samuel got up and went to meet Saul, but he was told Saul has gone to Carmel. There he has set up a monument in his own honor and has turned and gone on down to Gilgal. When Samuel reached him, Saul said, The Lord bless you. I have carried out the Lord's instructions. Talk about delusional, okay? But Samuel said, What then is this bleating of sheep in my ears? Like, I'm hearing all these sheep going bad. What you talking about? What is this lowing of cattle that I hear? Saul answered, The soldiers brought them from the Amalekites. They spared the best of the sheep and cattle to sacrifice to the Lord your God, but we totally destroyed the rest. Like, do y'all hear the delusion in this man? Enough, Samuel said to Saul. Let me tell you what the Lord said to me last night. Tell me, Saul replied. Samuel said, Although you were once small in your own eyes, did you not become the head of the tribes of Israel? The Lord anointed you king over Israel, and he sent you on a mission saying, Go and completely destroy those wicked people. Wage war against them until you have wiped them out. Why did you not obey the Lord? Why did you pounce on the plunder and do evil in the eyes of the Lord? But I did obey the Lord, Saul said. I went on the mission the Lord assigned me. I completely destroyed the Amalekites and brought back Agag, their king. The soldiers took sheep and cattle from the plunder, the best of what was devoted to God, in order to sacrifice them to the Lord your God at Gilgal. But Samuel replied, Does the Lord delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as much as in obeying the Lord? To obey is better than sacrifice. Oh, I know what I just read was a lot, but I feel like it truly gives the big picture of how a lot of us are in our lives today. Saul was so delusional that he actually thought he did what God asked him to do. And again, like I mentioned earlier, this is on the spectrum of almost that second type of person that I was talking about, who actually put in the effort, who did the work, who tried their best to do what God asked them to do, but they just didn't do it the right way. Their almost obedience cost them in the same way that Saul's almost obedience cost him. Because a few verses later, the Lord literally rejects Saul as king. It literally says, You have rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord has rejected you as king over Israel. So because you didn't do what I asked you to do, you getting up out of this position because you didn't do what I said. And from that moment forward, Saul's life completely changed. He went from being a king who was highly favored, who was loved by all his people, to someone who went on to eventually commit suicide. He became jealous of the king that came after him, which was King David. We all know David and Goliath, that story. David rose as king and Saul was jealous of him. Saul tried to kill David every single chance he got. And in the end, he ended up killing himself. That is the cost of your disobedience. You cannot be so delusional in your own way of thinking and believe that you are carrying out God's commands in the way that he intended for you to when you are not doing exactly what he said. If Saul would have just killed all the animals and killed the king in addition to all the other people that he destroyed, he still would have been king. He still would have been blessed. He almost did it. He almost obeyed God. He almost was the best king that Israel had ever had. He almost was a legacy, but his partial obedience led to his downfall. His willingness to try to take control over the situation and think that he could do something better than what God already ordained him to do is what caused him his downfall. Now, God probably is not telling us to go and kill a whole bunch of people, okay? This is different times. But what does your partial obedience look like? Is it ignoring a conviction that God has given you? Has God told you to stop listening to certain artists, to stop reading certain books, to stop wearing certain things, to stop hanging out with certain people? Are you delaying your obedience by waiting for the perfect time, waiting for the perfect moment, waiting until you have it all figured out? Or are you only doing the easy parts of what God told you to do? Are you only doing the things that make you feel the most comfortable, but not actually committing 100% to the things that God is asking you to do? Partial obedience can look like a lot of different things for a lot of different people. I'm not about to sit here and pretend like I know what y'all got going on. But if you honestly self-reflect and look into yourself and talk to God, you will discover the ways that you are being partially obedient. And when you discover that, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to be a Saul? Are you going to be somebody who does things halfway and continues to do things halfway and in the end cost yourself your blessing? Or will you be the person who decides to fully trust God, believe that everything will work out, and step out on faith and just do it? I promise you it's better when you just do it. I promise you the outcome is always good when you just do it. Yeah, you might go through some things along the journey, but that is because it's a part of your testimony. That is because at the end of it, that you will know that there's no way that you made it through and became successful without God. Everything is a process, and you have to trust the process. You cannot try to control the process. You cannot be afraid of the process. You cannot stay stuck in your comfort zone that you miss the process completely. You are sacrificing so much when you choose not to be obedient. You are sacrificing peace. You are sacrificing purpose. You are sacrificing character. You are sacrificing intimacy with God. How can you become the person that God wants you to be if you continuously stay stuck in a state of almost? I know you probably think you're saving something by holding back. You might think that you're saving money. You might think that you're saving time. You might think that you're saving energy and effort or security, but really you are losing everything that matters. Living halfway is not fun. Living in a state of almost is not fun. Like, you are literally killing your potential when you choose to stay in this state. You are literally having this internal battle of wanting more but refusing to go for it. I promise you, life is so much more fulfilled and free when you choose to just operate in obedience, when you choose to just go in 100%. Like, I think about Peter when he was walking on water. Of course he was scared. It was the middle of the storm. It was dark. Walking on water is literally impossible. Like, of course he was scared, but he believed in God. And because of that belief, he stepped out on faith and he was able to do the impossible. So just imagine what you would be able to do if you actually stepped out on faith. You would be able to do what you think is impossible. You would be able to accomplish the dreams that you have for yourself. You would be able to feel success and feel fulfilled. Having faith requires movement. You can't stay in the boat. If Peter stayed in the boat, we wouldn't talk about Peter the way we talk about him today. You have to move. You have to take a step. Almost is not going to get you there. Dipping his pinky toe in the water was not going to get Peter walking on water. He had to fully step, and he ain't know if he was going to fall into that water or not. But he stepped with faith because God told him to do it. And the last time I checked, if God said it, I believe it. If I know for 100% without a doubt that God has told me something, to do something, to start something, to build something, oh, I'm going to do it. Because at the end of it, I know that it's going to be good because God said it. So why would I limit myself? Why would I stop myself from experiencing the fullness of God by choosing to stay in a state of almost? We got to start walking in full obedience, because until we do, we are literally missing out. So how do we do that? How can we walk in obedience? I'm going to give y'all 4 things and then I'm out of here because I already been talking for a little bit too long. Okay, first step in how to start walking in full obedience obedience. You need to acknowledge where you stopped short. Okay. I've asked a lot of reflective questions in this episode, and you just need to really dissect, where have I been partially obedient? Where have I been doing things the wrong way? Where have I been trying to take control instead of letting God lead me? You have to acknowledge that. You have to understand where that is, because acknowledgement obviously is the first step of everything. If you don't know where you fallen short, then like you can't fix it. Step number 2, you are going to repent without shame. God is not just sitting here waiting on us to come back to him so that he can chastise us and fuss at us and yell at us. Like, no, he doesn't want to do that. He wants us to return to him, to know that he's always been there, to know that he's always loved us, that he's always had us. He just needs us to find that faith and that belief again. So when you go to him and you repent, do so unashamed. Allow God's grace and forgiveness to flow into you so that you don't feel guilty, because there's nothing that we can do about the past. The only thing that we can do is move forward and try our best to be better every step of the way. The next step to walking in full obedience, number 3, you have to start again. I know it's going to be hard. I know. That's like the scary part, is like, okay, now I actually got to do this. I figured out where I fell short. I asked God for forgiveness about it, but he's given me an assignment, whether a new one or an old one. And either way, you got to start. You have to be willing to have the faith to just do it. Because if you don't, you will continue to stay in this cycle of almost. You will continue to stay in this cycle of not showing up and doing the things that God has asked you to do, and not doing the things that people need you to do. Like, God is not just giving you all these ideas and business plans and relationships for no reason. He's not just doing that for you. He's doing that for other people, so other people can be ministered to, so other people can be free, so other people can be touched. So you refusing to start is you not just delaying yourself, but delaying someone else. Delaying someone else's progress, breakthrough. You could be someone's mentor down the line. Like, you never know what God has planned. So you just have to be willing to start and have the faith and know that everything is going to work out, even though you're putting yourself in the unknown. And then lastly, number 4, you are going to surrender the timeline. I know a lot of us want things done quick, fast, in a hurry. We live in a microwavable society right now, and everybody just wants everything right now, today. But that's not how God works. True obedience doesn't need to understand when or how things are going to happen. You simply just have the faith that it will. That's how you find peace. That's how you're able to let go, is when you just have full trust that everything is going to work out. You throw up your hands and completely surrender and give it to God and just say, let your will be done. That is the easiest way to get through life. I promise you. Stop trying to control everything. Stop trying to micromanage everything and just let God do what he do. So yeah, that's gonna end today's episode. I'll leave you guys with the last few closing thoughts. Growth requires completion. You will not be able to become the person that God has called you to be if you continue to stay in a state of almost. If you continue to allow your fear, your doubt, your control, your comfort cost you everything that God is trying to build for you. Don't be like Saul. Don't let your legacy be built on almost. He was almost a great king, but at the end of the day, his own disobedience caused his detriment. And I just don't want that to be you. I don't want that to be me. God cannot bless what you don't finish. Matter of fact, God cannot bless what you don't start. Okay, so wherever you at on that spectrum, whether you're the person who is scared to step or the person who stepped wrong, God can't bless what you don't finish. God can't bless what you won't do the right way. So I want you to reflect this week on what areas have you been living in almost. And I want you to commit to figuring out a way how to get out of that state so that you can stop living in this half obedience and dive in head first to fully commit to the things that God has asked you to do. What would change in your life if you just said yes? What would change in your life if you just gave it 100%? What would just change in your life if you did things the way God intended for you to do them? Would life be better? I 100% guarantee you that it would be. And even if it's not, the worst thing that can happen is you end up in the same exact space that you are. And that's okay. You here anyways, so you might as well try. You might as well give it the effort. You might as well have the faith that something will turn out differently. Let's not be Saul. Let's not live in delusion. Let's not think that we're doing something the right way way when we really doing it the wrong way. Let's not be the person who is scared to step out of the boat, okay? And that's all I got for y'all. I'm done preaching. I'm getting off my high horse, but I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I love y'all so much. Thank you for listening to me ramble every single week and just share my thoughts. I really hope that what I say resonates with you on a deep level, because I never want this to feel surface level. I want you guys to have the desire to change your life from the inside out. I want you guys to be the best versions of yourself. I want you to be the woman that God has called you to be. Okay. I'm striving for that every single day, and I hope I encourage you to do that every single day. So that is all that I have. I love you guys so much. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast, leave a like, comment, 5-star rating, all the things. I hope that you have a great Monday, a happy Thanksgiving, and I will talk to you in my next episode. Bye.